Hello and welcome to my seed starting video, you guys. I am going to go over the very basics on how to start seeds, and I'm gonna hopefully make it foolproof. And I'll go over the seeds that the most beginner gardener can grow. All right, so let's talk about our supplies. First, what we're gonna need is your seed starting soil mix, okay? It could not be potting soil, it has to be seed starting mix, because of the kind of soil it is and the type and what's in it and all that. So you have to have your seed starting mix. Then what you're going to need is you have to have something to grow your plants in. There are all different kinds of things that you can use, but I have discovered this great new little seed starting kit from Amazon, okay? And this little thing fits in here. There's no holes in the bottom of this, so it will retain its moisture, but there are holes in the bottom of these, okay, for proper drainage. And then it has a little lid for it. What I like about this versus this, and I'll show you why in a minute, when they're smaller, they're easier to contain and they dry out less, whereas those, there's so many different kinds, and I've just not had as much luck with it as I have had these. So you can get these at Amazon. So you need to get any kind of seed starting pot, whatever. Some people use egg cartons, whatever. I just like it like that. Okay. So then after that, what you'll need is the other two basic things. You need light and you need water, and well, really, you need the sun. So if you have a good sunny window that gets full sun, you need to know where your sunrise is. You can put them in that window, okay? But if you don't, like me, I live kind of in the woods and I don't get a lot of sun in the house, I have plant lights. And I also have heat mats, which I did not use for the first several years, and you don't have to use. So you have to have your soil, your pots or your seed starting pots, light, and if you want, you could do heat. And then furthermore, and you do not need the rest of these things, okay? This tool has been very helpful. I feel like you can get them for like less than $20. It's like I think like a soldering tool. I don't know. It gets really hot, and then I can poke my holes in containers that I need drainage. So after my seedlings get a little bit big, you have to do something called up potting, and you have to move it to a bigger pot. So a lot of the times I would use solo cups, and I would use that tool to burn holes at the bottom. You need to understand that your plants cannot stay soggy and they cannot be dry. They have to have a consistent moisture, and you will learn and you will fail and you will figure it out exactly what it needs. Another thing that I use and that you need to use is plant tags, okay? And you can make these. I've made these before. You can do whatever, but you need to know what you're planting, because I have forgotten many and many times. And you get like 20 of them and you think, oh, that'll be enough. You're going to need like at least 100. And I'll explain why in a minute here as well. So once you gather all your supplies and you get your seeds, the next thing that you're going to do is you're going to put your soil, hang on. I learned this on my own the hard way, okay? I used to just put the soil dry directly into the little containers and then do my seeds. It takes forever because of the type of soil it is. I think it's probably peat moss in there. It takes a while to retain and mix up the moisture, okay? So it needs to be evenly moist soil, okay? I have water in there. It'll crumble, but it's still wet. So what I do is I get my potting soil, and I pour it into a bowl, and then I pour water in there, and I just get it all nice and moist. You don't want water standing in the bottom. You just want a nice, good consistency with your soil. Next, you're going to fill your container with your soil, and I do this in the sink. I'm not going to do this right here. I just use a spoon, and I just place it all in there. It's kind of messy, and then I pat it down to make sure that I have enough soil in each one, because sometimes you'll have like little air pockets, and you just press that all down good. And at that point, you're ready for your seeds. Now, this next part is key, Okay. With your seeds, some require light to germinate and some don't. So what that means, the ones that require light to germinate, they have to be on top of the soil, barely covered, so that the light will help them germinate. Okay. And then some seeds, they don't require light to germinate. So they have to be planted further down so that the light doesn't get there. So when you plant your seeds further down, the ones that don't require light, and you have lights, it's okay because your soil is protecting it from that. So don't worry about like lights on this one and lights not on this one. Your soil is going to protect your seed that doesn't get light. It will say, a lot of that it'll say on the back of the package, but sometimes not. So I just Google, do tomato seeds need light to germinate? Okay. Or whatever. And it'll let you know if they need light to germinate. And then you need to know the depth of what you're planting. And the packages will say the depth. Now, if one of them says like an eighth of an inch in, that's usually they require light. So you don't even really need to put them in an eighth of an inch. And when they require light to germinate, and you what you do is you put your seed on there and you just kind of press it into the soil. And then what I will do is I will take a handful of soil and I'll wring out the water, and then I'll just sprinkle it really lightly on the plant to where I know light will still like penetrate to that seed to help it to germinate. This is why my hands always look like this. One other thing I want to bring up is I've had all different kinds of ways to store my seeds. And this year I feel like I found one that actually makes sense. Here I have all of my different seeds here in these little containers. They're zipper, and I put on there what they are. And it's just real easy for me to flip through, throw them in there, and be done with it. I'm not going to, but if I was going to start these sunflowers today, okay, it says here that the depth needs to be an inch, okay? I just grabbed a chopstick, but you can literally use anything. I've used a pen before. I just stick it down in there, make a little hole. That's about an inch, good enough. I would drop the seed in there and then press. And then if I did this whole row, then I would get a plant marker. And let's say that said whatever sunflower it was, and I would know that all that row is that sunflower. All right, let's look at my setup here. This thing, I can't remember where I got, but maybe Amazon. Anyway, it has some plastic thing that I can put over it, but I just haven't really needed to because all of my little plants have these little lids, which kind of serves as that plastic protector. And then I want a little fan on some of them. So if I don't put that plastic thing over there, then I can get the fan to touch the plants that I want. I'm not talking about those right now. Okay. And then I have my heat mats here, and they all kind of plug in together. And then I have my lights hanging up. And honestly, well, I don't know. I feel like one light isn't really strong enough, but it does get them to start. So I have added an additional light here. I've actually got some more that I still haven't plugged in. But this is my little setup, and this is where I start all of my seeds here in the house. Also, my lights here are automatic. This little thing has a timer. So I set it for like 7 a.m. and it'll stay on for, how long does that say? 12 hours. Yep. Okay. The other very important thing that you absolutely cannot skip, you have to check on those every single day. Because if you don't and they get dry, they will die. And that has already happened to me. Oh, I did want to show you one more little thing. So this is that big container I was telling you about that now I don't really like to have one in one large tray because these sprouted and died. These sprouted and died. These aren't doing great. These are decent. Those are beautiful. These are black-eyed Susan vine. My portulaca died, and my begonia never came up. So I have redone them in those smaller little pots to see if I'll have better luck with them. Because, I don't know, some dried out and some didn't. And I just kind of like the smaller method better than the big tray. Okay, so we started our seeds. Our seeds have sprouted. And I'm just going to go over a few different ones, okay? Let's talk. A lot of people start tomatoes. Some people like vegetables more than flowers. That's fine. A lot of people do tomatoes in the garden, and they'll be like, mine are leggy or mine don't look that good. Well, honey, look how leggy these are, okay? I mean, they're not terrible. And actually, they were even leggier, but I put a fan on them. Sorry, I should have said that as also a supply that you need. But you don't have to, because this year is the first year that I've ever used a fan. But I could tell that they were stronger. So, these, I put a couple seeds in each pot. Now, some people would be like, you're not supposed to do that. You should put only one seed per pot. Well, that's fine, but this works for me. So that's what I do. But these bad boys absolutely have to be up potted because they need nutrients. And the only thing that's in there right now is that seed starting mix. And it doesn't have the nutrients and stuff that my tomato plants need. So I'm going to up pot them. I'm going to be very gentle because they are fragile. And I'm really going to probably stick all of this into the bigger pot. And all of these, hang on, let me see if we can do this here. Oh, okay. See those little hairs back there? Those will all root. And then my will be super duper strong and happy. And I will show you how to up pot those in a minute, but let's keep moving. Also, these tomato plants, and put a date on your tags. You will want to know what day you planted them because you will learn about, you'll just know how they grow and where they are. And, I planted this one on this day, da-da-da-da-da. I have had so much use for putting dates on them. And right now, I didn't put a date on these, and I can't remember when I planted them, but I feel like they're probably 4 to 6 weeks old, maybe. And the next up, we have, sweetie, my zinnias. I will up pot some of these, okay? Now, I have heard from a lot of people, or not a lot of people, I have heard that you're not supposed to start zinnias indoors, and you're not supposed to transplant them. They don't like that, blah, blah, blah. I've never had a problem with that, ever. I like starting my zinnias indoors. And one of the reasons that I start my plants and flowers indoors and not in the ground is because when you put them in the ground, you don't, well, I do now, pretty much, but in the beginning, I did not know what was weed and what was seed, and I know I did. I got rid of all my zinnias thinking that they were weeds. It didn't work like that. But here, the only thing that's going to grow up in each of these containers is whatever I put in there because there's no other seeds because I bought the soil from the store and the only thing that's going to grow in there is what I put in there. Another thing about zinnias is they do this weird thing. They'll get real long and leggy because they like a lot of sun. So that's really why they're so long. They're stretching up there trying to get to the sun. But do you see how it curves like that? That's fine. If this was a full-grown plant that fell over, it would grow up like that. They do that. Let's talk about pepper plants. So these pepper plants here, actually, I don't know. I could probably up pot these. I'm not really that worried about it. Peppers are the best, okay? If they get a little dry, they'll be like, oh, that's okay, honey. We love you anyway. Or if they get too wet, they're just like, whatever. I mean, they are freaking awesome. Pepper seedlings are hard to kill, really. And then my little jalapenos, see, I planted them later. They're starting to sprout, which is another reason why I've kind of left these in here because I still have others. But these are looking beautiful. And another thing people do also is they'll just pinch the tops and it promotes growth. And you absolutely do that with your tomato plants. And I'll talk about that in a minute too. Pepper plants do also sprout quicker if they're on a heat mat. A lot of things will. And it'll say that too. If you're not necessarily on the packet, but if you're online, they'll recommend a heat pad is recommended for starting the seed. Okay, so I planted something that I knew was probably going to be big and I shouldn't put it in with this other plant, but I had never planted it before, so I wasn't really sure. And yeah, it's big. And then I got these little babies back here. So these poor fellers need to get into something bigger. But I'm so proud of you. little girls. You know, if you talk positively to your plants, they grow bigger and happier. And that is true, and it's science. Okay, so let's talk about temperature and weather and all that stuff. So right now it's the March 20 something, and we're still getting frost at night and cold at night. We're getting freezing temperatures. So I don't have anything outside right now. Especially my greenhouse gets very warm during the day, and they love it during the day, but at night it gets cold and I have to bring everything in. So right now, while they're this young, they're doing okay in here. And so I will not be moving them outdoors until it gets a little bit warmer. Now, if I have time, I will bring them out to the greenhouse during the day and then bring them back in at night, because they love no light more than they love the sun, honey. So we keep all kinds of pots and stuff, okay? And what I did with these first, because they had already been used and were dirty from soil and things from last year, I did wash them with Dawn soap and with Dawn dish soap and water. And then I rinsed them really well. One thing that I have learned is no matter what, plants get diseases and pests. So I don't know. I sometimes don't even bother doing that because it's just kind of inevitable, but I went on ahead and washed these today to keep my tomato plants safe from any kind of mildew or bacteria or fungi or whatever that was in there. So now it's time for up potting. Okay. Your seeds are getting bigger. Life's happening. It's so exciting. And I mixed, so we used seed starting mix for our seeds. And now that we're up potting, we need to use regular potting soil. So I got potting soil. I mixed it up with water just like I did my seed starting mix. And I went on ahead and packed it in here. So now what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and make my hole big in here. And I'm just going to get in there and use my finger a little bit and just make a little hole for my tomato plant. Bing! Now what we're going to do is I'm going to pull up one of my little tomato plants. And what I like to do with this, you could use anything again. I like to use the end of a spoon because I can get in there. Hang on, let me see if I can do this a little bit better here. All right, so I can get in there and just kind of push down. And then I can't darn do this holding the phone. Hold on. You're just going to have to pay attention, huh? Okay? Get in there with my spoon, and I just pull it up. And I make a little bit of a mess, just for shits and giggles, honey. And then there are these two plants. Now, very gently, look at that little one. I'm just going to pull them apart. Love you guys. Thank you for everything you do for me. Okay. Now, let's stick that bad boy in there. Push him down a little bit. Okay, and I can't do this with one hand, but I'm going to try. I'm just going to pack that soil in tight around there. Hang on. All right, I packed him in there, but guess what? Look at all that. All of that. That needs to have soil in it because all those little hairs will get roots. And then this bad boy's going to be strong as heck. Okay, so I added soil all the way up there, whereas my tomato, there's that much of the stem that's going to root in there. And then tomato plants are a little bit freaky, honey. I'm just going to go up there and give it a little pinch. They like that. Okay, top leaves. And the bottom leaves already came off. I pinched those off. Your first two set of leaves, I already pinched those off. And then at the end, from now on, what I'll be doing is, because there's already nutrients in here from your potting soil, okay? Down the road, I will be using my manure and fertilizer and all that jazz, but for right now, it has nutrients in it from the potting soil. But I will be watering with Epsom salt in my water. I feel like it's 2 tablespoons per watering can, but you'll have to look up the measurements with what you're going to be using. But that Epsom salt will thicken up this stem, and it will become quite thick and fantastic, honey. And at the very end, I love you, little sweetie, and I'm so proud of you, and I hope that you make really great tomatoes. Thank you. And then that's it, honey. You're just going to let that grow. And so that's it with the tomato plants. I almost forgot one of those couple steps. I wouldn't have known what this was if I didn't put a little Cherokee purple in there. Cherokee purple, Cherokee pride. You know that Tim McGraw song? I sing that every time I play those. Anyways, I feel like I went over all the things that you need to know. Oh, hold on now. Okay. When your seedlings are young, it's good to kind of like spray them, but then sometimes some seedlings are like, oh my God, the water, it's so much with the little spray. So you got to find a way to not freak out the babyest of seedlings. Maybe water from the bottom. I don't know. I'm still kind of trying to figure that one out. But sometimes if they flop over, they'll flop back up. Or you can help them a little bit with a little toothpick. I don't think I have anything else to say, but let me know if you have any other questions.